as a distraction in communication. Another possibility can be a cluttered computer screen. For example, you are going through a certain website and you are seeing a lot of ads, and the whole screen is getting cluttered with maybe some messages or maybe some other useless stuff. So it will act as a distraction. Reminding pop-ups. Often we are surfing through the internet, or we are using our computers, and we are constantly being giving different pop-ups. So these were just to name a few examples. There can be many other external distractions. On the other hand, talking about internal distractions basically means the distractions which are inside of us. For example, thoughts. We are constantly getting some thoughts. We are engaged in a discussion with someone, but we are preoccupied with something we are thinking about, right? Maybe we are thinking about a certain personal problem of ours. Maybe we are thinking about a new car which we want to buy. Maybe we are thinking about any type of relationship of ours, right? So these are the thoughts, and sometimes we are preoccupied with these thoughts, and they act as a distraction. We are apparently discussing something with a person, we are listening to a person, but actually we are distorted, actually we are distracted. It usually happens to almost everyone, especially in the classrooms. When we are sitting in the classroom, we are listening to the teacher, and we are responding to him as well with different gestures, but we are physically there, but mentally we are somewhere else in our thoughts. We are thinking about other things. So this is an internal distraction. Another point is the emotions. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are angry, sometimes we are in a fun mode, sometimes we are a bit in a boring mode. So these are all different emotions of ours which can also act as distractions. Another thing known as multitasking. I'm sure we all know what it is. When we are trying to perform multiple tasks at the same time. Multitasking is something which almost guarantees distractions. When we are working on many things at the same time, so we do face a lot of distraction, because we are trying to get our brain to work on many things at the same time, right? To function on many things at the same time. So now at times it gets difficult for the brain, and this is why we get distracted, and when we are distracted, we are unable to perform all of the activities which we are trying to do at one time, right? So noises and distractions, they are the first barrier to our communication. The next thing is competing messages that are competing against each other. Now remember one thing, that having your audience undivided attention is a very rare thing to happen. For example, let's talk about the TV advertisements. Now TV advertisements, they are also communicating messages, right? They are messages, and each and every of those messages is actually trying to reach to you as a potential audience, right? So you are the center of attention of all those advertisement messages. Now what happens? All these messages are competing with each other. All these messages are in a constant effort to make you note their advertisement or their communication, right? So maybe TV ads, or maybe we are going through some market, or maybe we are sitting anywhere else, maybe listening to something on the radio, right? So all these messages, they are competing against each other. There is a big clutter of messages, and each and every message is actually trying to reach you. So as a communicator, it is a pretty tough job to make you notice their message, right? In most cases, especially in business oriented cases, you must compete with other competing messages. For example, as I mentioned before, TV ads. Now whenever we are watching our TV, right, let's take example of anything. Detergents, we have Surf Excel, we have Ariel, we have Express Power, we have Bright, and we have many other brands, right? So we see advertisements of those brands every day, and each and every advertisement is trying to attract your attention, right? So as a communicator, it becomes a difficult job, but as a receiver, these competing messages, they act as barriers, they act as distractions, because these so many messages are coming. That is why you are unable to focus on a single message, right? If we are not talking about advertisements, let's assume a very simple case. You are sitting in a group, and there are a group of there are maybe 2-3 people with you, and all those 3 people are actually trying to tell you something at the same time. They are trying to compete with one another. They are trying to make sure that you listen to their message, not the other messages. So when you are getting these 3 messages at the same time, so definitely it acts as a barrier. The next thing which will act as a barrier in the communication environment is filters. What is a filter? Any human or technological intervention between the sender and receiver, right? A filter can be maybe something humane, or it can be something technological. For example, if we put a filter on our email to filter out certain messages, sometimes we block some phone numbers on our phones, so that we are unable to get messages or calls from those specific numbers, right? So filters can be humane, and they can be technological. Some filters are intentional, some are not unintentional. Intentional filters are those filters which you set up yourself with an intention to filter something. For example, if you have added a filter on email, right? There are certain unintentional filters as well. For example, you have some strong spam filter that deletes legitimate email as well, right? So in this case, what has happened? It was not your intention to delete that email, but it somehow got deleted, right? Now these were technological filters. If we speak about human filters, structure and culture of our society or an organization, the culture and structure is actually made by human beings, right? So the culture and structure of any organization can also act as a filter. For example, in some organizations there is a very vertical structure, and there is a lot of red tape. There is a lot of distance between those different levels of organization. So what happens in such cases? Communication flow is very slow, and in some cases non-existent, right? But in some organizations the structure is very horizontal, it is very flat, and communication is no problem over there, right? So that can also act as a filter. Maybe some people or some channel, they can distort the meaning of the message to their own advantage. Maybe at times we all have done that as well. We try to distort while we are communicating someone's message to another person. We somehow make an attempt to distort it, so that it can ultimately work out in our own benefit, right? So this was a human filter, if you want to put it like that. Then the next barrier is channel breakdowns. We have a lot of channels. We have some technical channels, we have some non-technical channels as well. Maybe there is a certain communication network which an organization uses to communicate its day-to-day procedures or day-to-day communications. If that channel somehow breaks down due to some technical fault, that would be a channel breakdown. But if we speak in non-technical terms, maybe a certain colleague was supposed to give you a message from your boss, but somehow he forgot that, and you couldn't receive that important message. So this is also a channel breakdown, because in this case your channel of communication was that employee who was supposed to deliver you the message, but he did not, right? So channel breakdown is also a kind of communication barrier. Now we know what communication process is, and we are now familiar with the different possible barriers. In order to be successful in communication, we must know what goes inside of our audience mind, right? What is actually going on there. Once we try to figure out, maybe then we would be able to communicate in a better way. Now, after a message works its way through the communication channel and reaches the intended audience, it encounters a whole new set of challenges. Understanding how audience receive, decode, and respond to the message will actually help you create more effective messages, right? So in order to do so, there are three questions that needs to be answered: how the audience receive a certain message, how the audience decode the message, and how the audience respond to a certain message. These are the three important questions. The first one, how the audience receive a message. Now, before going further, we must define what receiving a message actually means. For example, we say that an audience, a certain someone has received our message. What does that mean? To truly receive a message, the audience member, number one, needs to sense it, right? The audience need to sense it, and number two, select it, and number three, perceive it as a message. Sensing it means that he must get aware of the fact that something is coming. There is a certain message or something, right? He must be able to detect it with the physical sense, maybe sight, or maybe smell, or maybe through hearing. Then he need to select it, right? Then it needs to be selected. As we have discussed earlier, that there are going to be competing messages, many messages at the same time. So we need to select one from those messages. So if the audience member which we are studying has sensed it, then selected it out of the many options, and then perceive it as a message. The audience must perceive it as a message rather than just some random noise, right? So when these three things happen, then we can confidently say that certain audience member has received our message. Now, it may sound very easy for the people who are actually trying to create that message, for the sender of the message. But imagine you are walking in a busy commercial area of a town. There are many billboards around you, and each and every billboard is actually trying to get your attention. So in this case, you may sense all of them, but you may not select all of them. You will only select a few of them, right? So this is where the job of the communicator or the marketer becomes tough, because what they need to do, they need to break through that clutter. There is a clutter of messages all around us. Now, which message is going to break through that clutter and reach to us? Now, this is something challenging, right? What can we possibly do about it? Now, there are 5 principles which may increase the chance of our success whenever we are trying to create a message, right? Number 1 is consider audience expectations. Audience's expectations are very important to be considered. What the audience member, for example, Mr. X, what is Mr. X expecting? Where is Mr. X expecting a certain message? For example, if you are sending an official email, you are trying to convey something to your colleagues, or maybe to your other employees. Obviously, they would be expecting that message to be coming through a certain medium. For example, if I talk about my own organization, whatever information there is to disseminate, we receive that information through our email IDs. So now I know that important messages, whatever it might be, will come through my email. Now, for example, if something unexpected happens, and instead of sending the important information on my email, the organization somehow creates a Facebook page and put that information there. So maybe I won't get it, because I will not be expecting important information on that Facebook page, and maybe I won't even visit that page, right? Or maybe my organization creates a blog for this purpose. So that would be something unexpected and it would create a problem. Yes, in certain cases, doing unexpected things, going out of the box, they do help in capturing the interest, on capturing the concentration of a certain target. For example, TV ads. Nowadays TV ads are being very creative, being very much out of the box. They are going very much away from the expectations, and they are being successful. But talking about communication inside a business organization, so you must always consider the audience expectations, right? Ensure the ease of use. Whatever message you are trying to deliver, don't make it too difficult to detect. Don't make it too difficult to decode, too difficult to understand. Make it easy for the target audience. Emphasize on familiarity. Use familiar images, use familiar language, use familiar faces, right? Emphasizing on the familiarity will also increase the chance of success. Practice empathy. Now empathy, the word empathy means when you try to feel for others, when you try to feel what others are feeling, right? So messages must always be empathetic. They must not be focusing on the sender, they must be focusing on the receiver, needs of the receiver, right? The last one is design for compatibility. Compatibility here, we basically means the technological compatibility, right? In whatever format you are trying to send a message, it should be compatible, it should be easy. For example, if I'm sharing a presentation with you of our course, now all PowerPoint now is a tool which is very much common. Almost everyone has it in their computers. Now if I send you a presentation in PowerPoint format, now that would be designed for compatibility, because I know almost everyone will be having PowerPoint on their laptops. But for example, if I use the software, there is a software known as Prezi for making presentations. It is a very good software. So for example, if I make a presentation through Prezi and send it to you guys, so it would not be compatible, because for that you first have to download Prezi, you need to have it with you people. So we need to take care of compatibility, right? Now we are done with how audience receive the message. Now the second thing is how audience decode the message. Now decode is very important. Decoding. See, received message is of no use until a certain meaning is decoded. And we have discussed it earlier as well, that meanings can be recreated. It depends on person to person, on situation to situation. Messages can be recreated. Perception differs from person to person, right? And it is a highly personal process. Decoding a message is a highly personal process. A lot of your personal characteristics actually play a role in there. And most of the times, message meanings are being recreated. The sender was trying to communicate something else, but the receiver has decoded something else. And what it depends on? It depends on culture, on our experiences, on the thinking styles, on hopes and fears, on our moods and many other things, right? So how they decode messages? Culture plays a role, our past experiences plays a role. Some cultures are more open and open-minded, some cultures are a bit conservative. Past experiences, the thinking style. Now some people are very positive thinkers, some people are very cynics, right? Cynical thinkers would always go to the negative side, a positive thinker will always think positive. Our different hopes, our fears, our moods. Sometimes we might be happy, we might be in a sad mood, sometimes we might be a little depressed, right? So all these things, they do have an impact on how we decode our message. There is another thing known as selective perception. Excuse me. Selective perception is also kind of a recreation of a meaning that often happens. Every person has their own perception about things, right? We have made our peace with this statement. Every person perceives things different. Every person has a specific mental map. We have a mental map which is made up of our past experiences and cultures and maybe many other personality attributes, right? Now if we receive a certain message, but that message, that idea was somehow not getting fit into our own mental map, into our own perceptual map. So what we do, we somehow try to distort the message. We distort the message, we recreate its meaning so that it can fit into our own perceptual map, into our own mental map, right? So instead of changing our own mind, we try to change the message which we have received. So this is something known as selective perception. Now the next thing is how audience respond to those messages, right? Number one important thing to remember is that the recipient has to remember the message long enough to act on it. For example, if you have forgotten the message, how you're going to act on it. Now about remembering, we have three memories: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Now sensory memory is a very it is very a momentary kind of memory, right? It is just it momentarily captures some incoming data from the senses, then whatever the recipient pays attention to, it gets transferred to the short term memory. Now it stays for a little bit longer in the short term memory. Now many of the things actually get erased from our short term memory, right? But there are some things which we intentionally want to remember, or there are certain things which gets linked to something that is already in our long term memory, so that new piece of information also gets shifted to long term memory, right? And then the last thing is to retrieval, that when the time comes to respond to a certain message, when the time comes to read that message, you must be able to retrieve it, right? It may have happened to a lot of you that you know a lot of stuff, but while writing it, the question paper, while writing it in a paper, we somehow forget and we are unable to retrieve that message from there. So retrieval is also very important, right? So in order to be successful, just be sensitive to what audience need and what they want. That was it for today's lecture. I hope to have a good question answer sessions in our live class. Quote of the day is in front of you. Read it, implement it in your lives. Thank you.